All right. So today is Thanksgiving. It's an opportunity to thank God for his goodness in your life.
Amen.
Every year we set aside a day to honor God, to reflect back on his goodness towards us. You've come from so far. If you really think and you sit back and you wonder, you'll find that there's so much to be thankful for. And so today, my word is very simple. It's from the topic, an attitude of gratitude.
Amen.
An attitude of gratitude. Amen?
Amen.
So I'm going to ask that we pray and we'll get started. Dear God, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to come before your people. Once again, it's not about me, it's all about you. I ask that, Jesus, that you'd speak through me, Master. Help me to teach your people about an attitude of gratitude. Lord, any complaining spirit, any grumbling spirit, anything that's caused us to be ungrateful, we ask that you remove it and help us to move into this new vein of gratitude. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Now, our scripture is taken from the book of Luke, chapter 17, verses 11 to 19. I'd ask that somebody read that for us. And it says, "Now it happened as he went to Jerusalem that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. Then as he entered a certain village, there met him 10 men who were lepers, who stood afar off. And they lifted up their voices and said, 'Jesus, Master, have mercy on us.' So when he saw them, he said to them, 'Go, show yourselves to the priests.' And so it was that as they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, returned and with a loud voice glorified God. And he fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks, and he was a Samaritan. So Jesus answered and said, 'Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? And were there not any found among you that returned to give glory to God except this foreigner?' And he said to them, 'Arise, go your way, your faith has made you well.'"
Amen.
Now, life is a collection of moments. We go through happiness, joy, laughter, excitement, but you also face situations of disappointment, of pain, of confusion, of distraction and doubt. And the beautiful thing about these moments is you get the opportunity to sit down and decide, how will I define this moment in my life? You may be facing a difficult situation, but you have the power to sit down and think, how will I define this moment? Will I choose to have an attitude of gratitude, an attitude to say, you know what, God, no matter what the circumstance, I give you thanks?
Amen.
Or will you have an attitude of entitlement and begin to grumble, complain, whine, and be selfish? Now, in this story, we meet a young Jewish rabbi by the name of Jesus of Nazareth. He was busy teaching the people about the kingdom of heaven and how to inherit the kingdom of heaven on earth. And he came into contact with 10 lepers. Now, you have to understand the context of leprosy in the first century. Leprosy was the equivalent to AIDS today. Its effects were that serious in that time because there was very minimal treatments. When you consider what a leper had to go through, they were ostracized, they were left out, many of them were kicked away from their families, they were forced to move outside of their city, and there was a pronouncement of being ceremonially unclean. Can you imagine somebody labeling you as unclean? This meant no more public gatherings, no more weddings. Many husbands had to leave their wives. Many wives had to leave their husbands. Children were left away from their families and put in a separate community. And so with leprosy came rejection. With leprosy came disappointment. With leprosy came this feeling of not feeling like you were welcome. And so these 10 lepers were at a desperate place, a place of hurt, a place of confusion. And they came to this young rabbi named Jesus of Nazareth. Have you come to Jesus at your place of desperation? Have you sat down to consider, do I have what it takes to move forward? Have you decided to go to the Master, the great physician, to get that thing that you need? he's here. We've worshiped him, we've lifted his name high, and he's happy with what we've done. And so he's come and he's made his presence felt among us. And so this morning you have the opportunity to come before the King of Kings and bow down and prostrate and tell him, thank you. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my family. Thank you for my friendships. Thank you for those situations that I don't even understand. Thank you that you're able and you're greater than anything I've ever been through. And so like to the lepers, today we've come before Jesus.
Amen.
And so these lepers, they came before this young teacher and they said, Jesus, have mercy on us. Have mercy on us. Now from that situation, we find out that Thanksgiving has a sound. When was the last time you opened up your mouth and you said thank you? Thank you to God. Thank you to the people in your life. Thank you to your husband, to your wife, to your children, to your friends, to your family, to your co-workers. If you don't open your mouth and release a sound, Thanksgiving is hidden. You might have this intention in your heart. You might feel that there's this gratefulness about me, but until you open up your mouth to express it, it lies dormant. And so this morning, I'm imploring you to realize that Thanksgiving has a sound.
Amen.
And so this leper, he came to Jesus and he said, Jesus, have mercy on me. Jesus gave them an unusual instruction. He said, go to the priest and show yourselves. Looking at the situation, once again, did not make sense. I came to you and I asked you, heal me. Deal with this situation. And God says, take another step, stretch, go outside your comfort again. Was it not uncomfortable already to deal with being rejected and ostracized and treated like an outsider to get to Jesus? And Jesus would say to you, take another step, stretch. God is going to ask you to do certain things that you might not understand. You might have this dream bubbling up inside of you. Your family's never been there. Your friends have never been there. Nobody in your familiar circles understands that thing that God has placed inside of you. And so God is going to press you to stretch.
Amen.
Until you stretch, you will never see the goodness of God in your life. This is part of my stretch. I'm a communications major. I'm a writer. But when God pushes you to do something, you've got to step outside of your comfort. And so today, I'm imploring you, make that sound of Thanksgiving known. Maybe you haven't talked to your father for 40 years. I'm asking you, pick up the phone and say, Dad, I know we don't talk. I know we don't have much going on, but I just want to say thank you for the gift of life. You might never relate, but thank you.
Amen.
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 Thanksgiving also has a posture. You realize that Jesus sent forth 10 men to go and show themselves to the priest. But one, when he realized that he was healed, turned around and came and glorified God and said, thank you. Thanksgiving comes from a place of humility. This humble place to say, God, you are everything and I am nothing. My best day is just a small piece of what you have to offer. And so God, I humble myself. I put my ego aside. I put what I know aside. I put my comfort aside. I put whatever it is that's going on aside. And I say, God, you are everything and I am nothing. And so I thank you. Amen. I worship you. I give you all the thanks and all the praise. It's not an easy thing to do. Sometimes you look at the situation, maybe you're disappointed. How do you ignore how you feel and you say, thank you? It's a thing that takes the grace of God, but that grace is here today. Amen. Amen? And so we need to come to a place, a posture, an understanding that God, without you, we would be nothing. Without you, I couldn't even breathe one breath. Honestly, consider what it means to wake up every morning. Do you know what goes on throughout the night? Do you count how many times that your heart beats? You don't even know what the speed is. If I asked you what happened at 6 a.m. last night, you wouldn't have much to say because you have this comfort and this familiarity to know that some way, somehow, I'm going to wake up. There's a source. And so we need to humble ourselves before this maker and say, you know what, God? Today, no matter what it is that I got going on, I'm just going to say thank you.
Amen.
And so from that posture, that place of praise, that place of humility, this leper laid down prostrate before a man that he didn't even know, and said thank you. There's power in appreciation. What you appreciate will grow in your life.
Yes.
If you've got a job, be appreciative of that job. You might be a business maker or a multimillionaire in the making, but you need to appreciate your place in this process at this point. In due season, in due time, you will be the ruler of that same field. So be thankful for where you are, and be thankful for where you've been, and be thankful for where God is taking you.
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
And so we said Thanksgiving has a sound. It's an understanding that God, you are everything, and I am nothing. Thanksgiving has a posture. It has a way that it's expressed. Another man that really took about that posture of thanksgiving was Noah. Noah was asked to build an ark, take all the animals of the earth, gather them 2 by 2, and place them in this ark, and let the people know that a flood is coming, a flood is coming, a flood is coming. Imagine the size of the earth at the time. Go to every single place, north, south, east, and west. Travel to the desert lands to grab the camels. Go to the waters, take the fish. Go to the farms, take the cows. Take them one by one, and everyone's watching you. Some people were getting married, some were having kids, some were partying, some were working, and nobody stopped to think, let me help this guy. And so anyways, he went about, did his business, and God really followed through on his word, and he decided to let this flood break out. Now, my natural response after a flood would be, this is really depressing. All my friends are gone. All my family's gone. Everything I knew is gone. I have to start over. But Noah responded differently. Noah took out time to offer God a sacrifice that he could not ignore. His first thing that he did when he came back to the planet Earth, onto the land, was to give an offering to God as a thank you, to say, you know what? This isn't what I planned, this isn't what I wanted, but even in that situation, I give you thanks.
Amen.
And the interesting thing about that action was that God smelled a sweet aroma and decided that I will never again wipe out humanity. We look at what our brothers and sisters are going through in Haiti, what they're going through in Florida, what they're going through in the Bahamas, and it breaks your heart to see them lose their homes, lose their family members, lose their friends, lose their comfort. That happened to the entire earth. And so imagine how it would feel to be the last one left. There'd be feelings of guilt, of, am I really worthy? Why am I the one that he saved, right? But he still took out time to say, God, thank you. Things might be tough for you right now. Things might be very rough for you. You might not understand why God is dealing with you in such a harsh way. But I'm telling you that if you will decide to actively give God thanks, there will be a shift.
Amen.
I'm standing here by the grace of God, and because of that understanding that even though, you know what, I might not have my perfect health, I've got a reason to thank God. If I didn't move from that place of, oh my goodness, I walk with a limp, I would never be able to stand up here and tell you this. I would be able to succeed in many arenas and be able to declare things with a boldness and a courage of knowing. You've got to move past that thing that you don't like. That thing that's really holding you down is just a little piece of the story that's your life. If you're watching a movie and only one scene played throughout, would you keep watching the movie? Move past the scene. Let it go. Get over it. Get over yourself. And move to this place of being thankful. When you thank God, God is forced to respond.
Amen.
And so when we go past verse 16, we see that the leper fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. And so Jesus answered, were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? Were there not any found who returned to give glory to God, except this foreigner? And he said to him, arise, go your way, your faith has made you well. A few things to point out there. You look at verse 16, we had 9 Jewish lepers and 1 foreigner. And only the foreigner thought, let me give God thanks. How often do we take for granted that God favors us, God blesses us, God answers our prayers, God directs our steps, God saves us? I know all of us have been in a situation we said, God, if you get me out of this, I'll do this. We've all been there. I've been there. Maybe you won't admit it, but I've been there. If you get me out of this situation, if you save me right now, I promise I'll do this. After it happens, there really isn't a lot of follow through because you go right back to your normal. And so we've got to come to this place of really being able to sit down and reflect and thank God actively. Make the decision, I'm going to thank God. Amen?
Amen.
And so you realize that those 9 lepers were healed, but 1 was made whole. That being made whole was more than a physical healing. Jesus clearly restored him emotionally, because the amount of hurt and rejection you would face after going through that kind of disease would leave a mark. To have your friends that you used to spend countless hours with tell you, yeah, Sammy, can't really sit with you no more. Honestly, all the best to you in your life. And all of a sudden, you're an outsider. It was a feeling of rejection. And I'm sure there was a lot of disappointment lagging there too, where they're just like, okay, I didn't ask for this. How does this leprosy have to take over me? Why couldn't the next guy be a leper? And so you realize that Jesus took up the time to make him whole. Jesus wants to heal you where you hurt. I don't know where you're hurting, but the power of God is able to reach you in that low place, that secret hurt.
Amen.
Jesus is a friend to you. Jesus doesn't relate to you from a place of being on high. He comes to you on your level. He speaks to you in the way that you understand. A lot of times we think God's going to talk to us, and thus saith the Lord, I come, blah, blah, blah. God's going to speak to you in the way that you understand. It might not even be an audible voice. It's just this feeling, this urge to do something. That is the voice of God. You've got to quiet out the voice of the haters. You've got to quiet out the voice of the doubts, of the worries, of the anxieties, of the pain, of the fears, and let God lead you.
Amen.
Amen? I'm also going to talk to you about Nehemiah. Nehemiah is very much like us. He got bad news about the situation in Jerusalem, and he wanted to respond. And so he left his comfort, his lavish luxury, and decided to go and build and restore the wall of Jerusalem. Now, as he took a step to build, he realized greater opposition came. With every single thing that he laid down, greater opposition. And so I'm here as a prophet of God to you to let you know that opposition is part of the package.
Amen.
You are going to face opposition. You're going to face trials. You're going to face tribulations. Everything in you is going to try to stop you. As you step up to build, there are destroyers. What destroys us? Gossip, lies, doubts, criticism, sometimes abandonment. Maybe someone promised you something and they don't deliver. Those are all oppositions to your growth, to your expansion. But it will come. And so you've got to have this attitude that God himself has willed me. He's ordained me to build. And so whatever it takes, I'm going to press forward. If it means blocking a number, block a number. If it means avoiding a person, avoid a person. Sometimes when gossip comes to you, you've got to embarrass the gossip. It's as simple as, you said this about A, let me call A and we can discuss this. You do that once, the gossip is done. Gossip comes at the point where you're trying to move forward. It's a distraction. You realize that what hurt humanity was what? Being distracted. Our generation is the most distracted generation of all. Walk into a restaurant. I could be sitting with someone for 5 minutes. Within the 5 minutes, at least twice, someone's gonna check their phone. We're distracted. Don't let destroyers hold you back from building what God has destined for you to build. They don't have to understand your level of greatness. They don't have to understand where God has taken you. They don't have to understand where God has pulled you from. If they knew your journey, they wouldn't even get in your way. And so, we have to understand that Thanksgiving creates a response. Jesus is forced to respond to a grateful person. King Solomon built a temple full of lavish things. He used the tools that his father David gave to him, and he built this temple, this beautiful, magnificent place for the worship of God. He laid out his best. He didn't come on some lackluster mediocrity and say, you know, I could just put up a tent. We could set up an altar of some sort. They'll come in regardless. That's what they're used to. No, he said, let's get the jewelry. Let's get the gold. Let's get the sapphires. Let's get the best of the best craftsmen to make sure that this place is pristine and excellent. If you're going to do something, do it with excellence. If it's not going to be excellent, do not bother. Because God cannot respond to anything that is not of his quality and of his standard. And so you realize King Solomon made this offering, this sacrifice to God. And God visited him in the middle of the night and said, son, what would you have me do for you? Today, God might be pressing you to do something extra. Maybe your plan was, I'm gonna just go to service, sing a couple songs, go home, have this turkey, pass out on my couch and call it a day. But God is pressing you to move from that place of comfort, that place of familiarity, open up to him and express your gratitude. If you really count the days of the year, 365 days in every year, you wake up, you're not sick. You wake up, your heart hasn't changed on you. You wake up, you don't receive bad news. You don't live in an environment where there's war. You don't live in a place where there's confusion. You have the opportunity to better yourself. Every single thing that you would attempt to do is possible. That's a cause to be thankful. Won't you sit down and reflect and really thank this God? Because with that Thanksgiving, you give God no choice but to respond. It's going to be positive. We have the option to be like Abel and give God our very best, sacrifice our very best, the first fruits, the greatest of the great for him, or we can be like Cain and give him the scraps. That comes with your time, with your treasure, with your talents, and even in your relationships. If you make it a point to appreciate those around you, you become the favorite. It just happens. As time goes along, your company is something that people crave. Your company is something that people look forward to. As a married person or as a person dating someone, it's very easy to get caught up in what's wrong with them. Because people are annoying, am I right? Are people not annoying? People are annoying. Yes. So it's very easy to focus on what they keep doing that's annoying you. But you realize that when you point out the good, that good becomes the norm. If the person goes out of their way, for example, in the winter time to turn on the car for you, make sure it's heated, don't complain about, you didn't even shovel the snow in the driveway, and now you're telling me to go sit in the car, how do you expect me to get up? Why don't you say, thank you for doing that? Say, honey, it'd be nice if you could shovel this thing so I don't slip and fall and we don't have an issue. If you really just step back, there's always a response of thankfulness that you can give. Don't let your enemy lie to you and let you move based off of your emotions and how you feel all the time. Sit down, reflect, and let thanksgiving be your posture. Remember your God. What did he tell Moses? You shall set a day before me and bring my remembrance to me. God in his infinite wisdom set a day aside every week where we can sit down and reflect on his goodness and his kindness towards us. Can you imagine if you set aside a day a week to thank God for your life, how much better your life would be? You wouldn't have room to be miserable. You wouldn't have room to complain. And it would be a joy to find a new thing to be thankful for. And so this Thanksgiving morning, I'm going to give you the opportunity to start over. Walk with an attitude of gratitude. What brings about gratitude? Reflection, prayer, and praise. If you take out time to really think back, if you pray, you quiet those thoughts that might be bringing anxiety and fear and frustration, all those negative things. And if you praise, you raise God above the situation, which changes your perspective. It changes the way you look at things. A person that praises doesn't know a time where there isn't victory. A person of praise walks about with a swagger, with a confidence that my God is greater than whatever it is that's coming against you. You are a warrior. You are the one that God wants to use to change the world. But you have to be a person that walks with an attitude of gratitude.
Amen.
We have a lot to thank God for in this church. We're renting a space that costs us upwards of $10,000 a month. And God has provided every single month.
Amen.
There's never been a month that God has not provided for us. We started in the pastor's basement of his home. We moved, we graduated to the basement of another church building. And God in his love and his mercy and his grace would give us a beautiful place to worship. We have a reason to thank God. Why don't you thank God for that? You have relationships and you have people that you can even pick up the phone to say hi to. You haven't received news that your family or your friends are gone. That's a reason to be thankful. Some of you started out working minimum wage jobs, but if we check your T4 at the end of the year, it's improved by leaps and bounds. That's a reason to thank God. If you're a student, you faced a day where you thought failure was the next option. There was a time that things weren't looking too grim, and God pulled you out of that. You have a reason to be thankful. We look around, even just the simple weather. It's so beautiful. We've had the best summer ever in Canada. It's probably the longest summer I've lived through. I'm thankful for that. If you're not thankful, I'm thankful for that.
Amen.
And so this morning, I'm going to ask you to rise up, and we're going to tell God that we love him, and we're grateful for his kindness and his mercy towards us. We're going to show God that Thanksgiving has a sound, that Thanksgiving has a posture, and Thanksgiving creates a response.